going to be for the new Muslims pretty much. So if you're a Muslim, born by Muslim, I think it's going to be beneficial for you as well, because it's really necessary to sit down and just listen to what new Muslims really go through. I mean, it's not an easy thing what they go through, and a lot of times, like if someone become Muslim and leave Islam, we start like judging them. Oh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not guide them. They just became Muslim because they wanted to get married, things like that. So we're going to talk about this. If you're not a Muslim, inshallah, after, I think we have a workshop afterward, and the workshop, there is one of them I'm going to be in, is, I'm specialized also in talking to non-Muslims, so I love to do like one-on-one conversations with them. So if you have any questions, please write it down, and we can just sit together and discuss it all together, and figure out the answers, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair for inviting me. May Allah bless you. Unfortunately, my speech is going to be a little bit painful, so it's not like, going to be like funny and stuff like this. But inshallah, it's going to be for the benefit for all of us. Jazakumullah khair. So it talks about the new Muslim lifestyle. As a new Muslim, of course, anyone becomes a Muslim, it's just such a great thing that happened, because Islam is the greatest ni'mah, the greatest blessing that happens to a person. It just changes his life 180 degrees. And it becomes like his priority is to worship the only God, the Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, أفمن شرح الله صدره للإسلام فهو على نور من ربه فويل للقاسية قلوبهم من ذكر الله أولئك في ضلال مبين. So is one whose breast Allah has expanded to accept Islam, and he is upon a light. Just imagine that you become a light in front of other people from his Lord, like one whose heart rejects it, then woe to those whose heart are hardened against the remembrance of Allah. SubhanAllah. And that's one of the things that happen once that person becomes a Muslim and she says her Shahada. What happened? Everybody just jumps on her and start hugging her and kissing her. Congratulations! That's a great thing that you've done. Alhamdulillah, you become a Muslim. But then after like that, everybody's gone, right? Nobody's here, feeling so lonely. The Muslims are so busy in their lives, They're working all the time. They're just, okay, that's great. Oh, okay, and that's it. And SubhanAllah, this is where it comes, the tribulation, loneliness. And we live in a Western society. It's very individualized. Very individualized. Everyone is independent by themselves. If someone asks you about some kind of questions and they were like a little bit further relationship that they're not really close, you feel like they're interfering your privacy. And it's like this. And SubhanAllah, I'm just going to warn you about the problems that I'm going to be talking about. And this is a psychological thing, because I took some psychology classes. It may not apply to you, but you may start feeling it after I say it. Why? Because it's just a Stockholm syndrome. That means, when somebody keeps telling you about a problem, you start sympathizing with it, and then after that you start feeling it. So I want to warn you that it may not apply to you as a new Muslim, or even Muslims that they came here to United States, to Sweden, and newcomers, immigrants, may also feel the same way, like they're losing their faith. It's not the same way like they were in their country and things like that. So please don't feel this way, or at least we're going to talk about after that, how to overcome it, inshallah, okay? So, of course, everyone, after they become Muslim, they have to go through a test. And this is just like by default. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Alif Lam Mim أحسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا الْحُسْنَى وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ فَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ الْكَاذِبِينَ. So do the people think that they will be left to say, we believe, and Allah will not test them? Of course Allah will test them. So at the end, the real believer will be, Allah will show the hearts of these people if they are really believers or not. So everyone will go through a test. That's good news, right? Okay. So, but then after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if He tests you, He will not give you more than what you bear. You have to know this by default. You can't just go out there, and then your parents start like bashing you and like disconnecting with you, and they boycott you, for example, and this is just one of the examples. And then after that you say, oh, I can't take this anymore. No, there is always a way after that. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not give you a test without giving you after that an open door. There is always an open door after that. And even if you can't see this door, you can just look up and you see an open door with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. That means Allah does not charge a soul except within its capacity. And that's what you have to know. So even if you think that you have been through the worst test ever, you have to know that this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the more Allah give you tests, that means you are stronger. Don't you know that the woman, the more she is tribulated, and the more she went through hardships, she becomes more beautiful? Not only from outside, but from inside too, right? Okay. So your problems, most of the time, is not with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Most of it is, by yourself, either psychological or with faith with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And our faith, sometimes it goes really high, sometimes it goes down. And everyone, becomes a Muslim at the beginning. They become really excited. They want to start, learning everything about the prayer and reading Quran and doing this and that. And then after a while, of course, if they don't keep up with their seeking knowledge and all that, they start going downhill. And we're going to talk about how can we keep up with our faith, inshallah. So your psychology change. You may lose friends when they see you wearing that hijab on. Oh, she's become backward. She's just become like those people, terrorist people, things like that. So you lose friends. But this is where actually you know your real friends. If they are real friends, they will stick with you, right? Yeah. All right. And tribulations within family, also with family, loved ones, work, society. I've known some women that they were kicked out from their job because of their hijab. I've known women that they were kicked out of their house, and they were studying in the college, for example, and their parents boycott them, and they stopped paying tuition. And that's actually in America, because here I think the tuition is for free. MashaAllah. I feel so jealous. Yeah, but subhanallah, yeah, they just stopped, supporting them financially because they became Muslim. And so this is one of the things. And also the last thing I want to talk about is shocked by the society. After we became Muslim, and we think that we're becoming Muslim, and we think that the Muslims are going to be just like the Islam that we read about in the books. And then we are just shocked by the Muslim. Some of them lie to us, some of them they just kind of don't like us, some people like, but I'll tell you what, we're not living in a perfect society. Muslims just like any other people. They have the bad and the good, right? But we always expect the Muslims to be the best. Subhanallah. What can go wrong after embracing Islam? And what can go wrong after I come to Sweden over here as an immigrant? And this is what I'm going to be talking about, the cultural shock. And I found that this is very similar to anyone goes to any other country and they go through the same thing. It's pretty much like you go into a different society and you kind of go through all this, And I don't want to be scared the people that they are not Muslims, but it's really good to know about these things so you can know yourself. And the more you know yourself, the more you know how to deal with it better, right? So the first thing, of course, the first one become Muslim, you're in the honeymoon phase, everybody's saying, you know, Mubarak, you know, congratulations, you became Muslim, Allahu Akbar, we're so happy for you, you are better than us, you know, all your sins were forgiven, you became like a new baby, blah, blah, you know, they start like giving you all these good encouragements, right? But then after that, you know, after it becomes like, oh, you've been a Muslim a month, two, you know, it becomes old for them, they kind of like go back to normal, right? And you start feeling that you don't have that attention like you had before, you know. And so the honeymoon starts fading, and we start going to the real world now, to the real thing, right? So we start losing confidence. And you will see some, like if you don't know a lot about Islam and you just entered Islam, and let's say that you don't wear your abaya long enough, or like you don't wear socks while you're praying or something like that, you see women coming to you, this is haram, what are you doing? You're supposed to put your socks on, you know, things like that. Haram, 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 everything is wrong, 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 don't do this, don't do that, right? And it becomes like, it becomes shocking to us as new Muslims. Why aren't Muslims are, you know, those are not the same Muslims that when we just met them, right? They're totally different. It's like they just put that wall right in front of you, everything, stop, 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 everything is haram. And this is where you start like feeling that you are losing your confidence. You start thinking, what I've done, was that the right thing I've done? Why are Muslims are not like the same way I was studying about Islam? It's not the same thing, you know? You start to be confused about things. Am I doing the right thing, or just because people say haram, am I really doing the haram thing or the right thing? And then after that you start feeling depressed. And feeling depression, it comes sometimes whether in the first stages or sometimes at the end, you know. And I'm telling you, depression comes also with when our faith starts going down too, you know. When your faith start going away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, start slowing down on your worships, and your learning about Islam and things like that, this is where you start going, you know, feeling that, okay, there's something wrong that's going on with me. And then it becomes the crisis. Maybe you become a Muslim, and then suddenly everyone wants you to get married, so you get married just because people told you to get married, and that's the right thing for them to do. And then the man was not the right person, and he oppressed you, or there's something wrong to you. And he called himself Muslim, where he's supposed to give you the best, you know, but he gives you the worst. And all the arguments happened, you know, you don't know what to do. You go to the Muslims and you say, and the Muslims come to you, you should obey your husband. But my husband is doing the wrong thing. He's not giving me what I want, you know, things like that. And so this is where it comes the crisis, the big crisis. And then you question your iman. Okay, was that the right thing I chose for myself or no? And this is where it really hits hard. And I think that this is really normal for every single new Muslim went through that. And it's really shocking to some people that they are born Muslim, like how could a new Muslim go through this? But they do. Maybe they don't talk about it, but they do. Everyone, even for the teenagers, after they become 14, 16, they start thinking about, why am I following Islam? Am I doing the right thing? Why am I following my parents' religion? And I'm sure that a lot of people, I've talked to so many people that they were born Muslim, and they say, you know what, I just discovered Islam when I was 18. Or I just discovered Islam when I was 24. Although I was doing my prayers, I was doing my Islam and everything, but I just discovered Islam later on in my life. Why? Because they stop and think. And this is just really normal. It's something very healthy that some people can go through. Even if after you become Muslim, you know, a woman can just stop and think again and just recalculate all her, you know, things. And that's just something normal. So don't take it as, oh, she's leaving Islam, oh my goodness. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to guide her. Or no, don't just take it so easy, you know. So after this crisis, some people can't go on with it, so they just quit. And they just want to live their life like normal. And those people, we're going to talk about them tomorrow. It's like, how can we deal with people that they left Islam? And I know that because even people who are immigrants here, they become very, they don't want to associate themselves with Muslims because all the things that they hear from the media about the Muslims, so they don't want to be like one part of this Muslim community. So what they do is they just put themselves in the non-Muslim, in a secular place, and they just even embarrassed to say that they're Muslims, and they just become like one of the non-Muslim people, you know, and then they just leave Islam, you know, and even when they see a Muslim in the street or something like that, they try to avoid them. And I've seen that, like people like this. So how can we deal with people like this? We can't just go to them and just, you know, start confronting them and yelling at their face, you know, how could you leave Islam? It's not the way. The Prophet ﷺ never did that to anybody. Although there were some Sahaba who actually entered Islam and left Islam. Just to let you know. It's really weird, right? We don't talk about this too much. We always talk about the greatest Sahaba, that they became Muslim and they became da'iyas and leaders. But we don't talk about the Sahaba who actually left Islam and what happened to them after that. The second thing is, you know, some people kind of like go back up, but in a very slow way. They start, okay, accepting what they are going through. But the thing is, I've seen those Muslims that they do that, and especially in the Arab countries, for the new Muslims, the Arab new Muslim, because they go through so much pressure by the church and the family, and it's totally different than, you know, here we have more freedom. You can, you know, worship whatever you want, you know, even if it was a tree outside in the street, you can even worship it if you want. Nobody will tell you anything. Over there in Arab countries, they don't. So what happened is, because of that, so much pressure, they come back, but they're so quiet, they don't want to talk about it, they kind of like accept it. Okay, this is qada from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm going to accept it. But what happened is, there's no healing. They always complain, because of the society. The Muslims are bad, they're, you know, and they kind of isolate themselves away from the Muslims, and they stay away, you know, and they don't do any difference, or they don't do anything. They're just accepting it as it is, because khalas, this is a decision they've made, they don't want to change, khalas. And even if they change, they're so afraid that if they change, that they're going to go even worse. So they just stay where they are, you know, neutral. And there is the best people who are actually, once they go down on the crisis, you feel that they start going up. And then after that, they kind of change. They become a third personality. And even, you know, for you,